And we're live. Another edition of the Johnny and Gene Show. I'm Felix Levine. We've got Gene Borrello, John Alite, and our guest today, Nick Christophers. Nick, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you very much.
So, author, I mean, there's a lot of different things you do.
Hmm.
I feel like it's almost disrespectful to not let my guests introduce themselves. Go ahead and take away just for a little bit of, for the people that don't know you, a little bit of background on yourself, because you'll do better than I will.
Oh, okay. Well, yes, I'm an author. I've been a writer for over 20 years. Um, I came up with a lot of guys that John happens to know. We mutually know growing up, and that's what got me into writing in the subject area because I'm familiar with most of it. And I, I've been on TV. I've been on radio many times. I had the pleasure of doing a book with John called Prison Rules that we'll probably discuss later on. And that's pretty much in a nutshell.
And so how did you first kind of get interested in anything mafia, mob related?
Well, I was bullied when I was a kid. I was beat up every day after school in grammar school. And then when I got into junior high school, I happened to meet with one of the guys who happens to be Greek, one of my people, and he was the head of a street gang in the school. And I got close to him, then I eventually joined them. And everybody that picked on me in elementary school, I jumped in junior high school. And I got suspended 5 times in the meantime. But then that's what got me into hanging out with guys like this. A lot of the wise guys used to come to my dad's cafe, like Vic Arena and all them, and I got close to them. I knew them, got very friendly, and that's what kind of got me into that mode of knowing these people and knowing this kind of stuff. And later on, I began writing about it.
And so what was the first your first time you heard anything about this guy over here? I mean, we all know his violent past, what he was. I mean, a lot tout him as one of the most violent people of that era.
Yes,
but
he
for
was.
you, what was the first time you had heard about him, and then kind of his reputation, at least back in those days?
Well, in those days, I heard of him. I mean, I heard his name many times from different individuals, especially one of the Arena boys. And then later on, we met later on in life, a couple of years ago, actually, through a friend of ours, Ed. And that's why we connected, and we've been close ever since.
So what was it like? I mean, you can even talk about it too, the process of writing Gotti's Rules. You guys co-authored it together. Who approached who to start it, and then what was the writing process like?
Well,
So you-
Gotti's Rules was by George Anastasia. We
Right.
wrote
Prison Rules.
Excuse me, Prison Rules.
When Nick got in touch with me through some articles, some magazine articles were written about me. He was doing magazines. He used to do a magazine called Mob Candy. And we had a discussion about the Arenas. Who he's talking about was one of the bosses of the Colombo family that were very familiar with me. And he's seen that I was on the path of trying to help a lot of kids. I was doing a lot of talks at colleges, high schools, juvenile centers around not just New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, out of the country also. And he said, would you be interested going on a bigger scale into a book called Prison Rules, where we can talk to kids about the pitfalls and adults of the violence that you committed and not to commit it, and how do you restrain yourself? And we expanded on it. We sat, we met, and we developed a book together, and we thought it would be a good idea, obviously, to put that out to help some people that are in trouble with crime.
And what was the biggest thing that you learned from co-writing Prison Rules with John?
I learned a lot about prison that I didn't know about, and it blew my mind. John actually had the idea of doing it, whereas to educate and influence the younger generation, men and women, that street life is not the way to go. And that's what the book is really about. It's catered to that audience. And learning about what his life was like in this prisons, especially in Brazil, that completely blew my mind. It was something that was basically eye-opening.
And we talk about it in some other episodes, but for you, Gene, in your experiences, I'm also kind of curious as to when you first got in, maybe the misconceptions that you thought prison would be like, that it then turned out not to be, because I think I could imagine for anybody that goes in, you might think it's one way, it might be a little bit different. For you going in, maybe the first time when you were younger, what was that kind of first experience like?
Well, I mean, I was going into Rikers Island, so I knew it was going to be a hellhole. I just didn't know it was going to be that bad. I knew it was going to be bad. I just didn't know it was going to be that bad. You know what I mean? So a lot worse than I thought. Uh, for me, when I got up north, it was actually a little better. People came together more. You know what I mean? But Rikers Island was total chaos. So for anyone that thinks that oh, it's not that bad. It's not Brazil, obviously. That's a third world country. You know, anything goes. Rikers Island is pretty much anything goes, but not people's heads getting chopped off and stuff like that. But, you know, stabbings and cuttings and beatings every day. So for any kid that doesn't know what they're going into, they're walking into a war zone, you know? And that's exactly what happened. I walked into a war zone. That's what it was.
Did you feel ever really protected? I mean, what was that daily basis?
Well, I'm going to name it like this. First off, we're white. Okay, when you go in and you're white, right away you're a target. Okay, but I was Italian, so my accent kind of, you know, they kind of like Italian people, whatever. But when you're white, you get targeted right away. They're going to try to take your stuff. They're going to try to take your PIN number. They're going to try to extort you. They're not going to let you sit in the chair. You got to fight to sit in the chair. You're not going to be able to sit down at the table to eat. You have to fight for everything in Rikers Island. You can't, Frosted Flakes, you can't eat your Frosted Flakes because they're going to take them. So this is what I'm saying. This is what happens in there. You have to fight for everything. And especially when you're Caucasian. It's even worse for you.
Mm.
So.
And then how do you kind of just manage on a daily basis to stay out of trouble? I mean, I know there's some...
You can't. Rikers Island, it's like it finds you. So when you say certain spots you could go to and you could really just fall back a little bit. In there, you can't fall back. It's tension 24/7.
And John, we talk about that kind of power structure of when you're in a prison. I mean, I know that some people are probably viewed a certain way. You probably had your own reputation. Will you talk about, you know, if there is kind of a different power structure, power dynamic, and where you kind of fell during the various prison stints that you had?
Well, I think what me and Nick were talking about with prison rules, or what Gene's talking about, the biggest thing that people got to understand, anybody going to any county jail, any prison, any state facility, is it's intimidating, especially when it's your first time through the box. You know, when you don't know the system, everything's unknown to you, you're going to be tried on a regular basis, like he said. So you got to kind of navigate yourself through the problems. And then you also got to navigate how violent you're going to be. You got to remember something. You got guys in there doing 20 and 30 and 40 years. And then you got guys, what we call skid bids, are doing 2 years. So you're not going to want to take it to the level that these other guys are, but you're also not going to want to let them take advantages. So there's, in the book, Prison Rules, it discusses all these techniques of how to kind of navigate yourself through it. And, you know, I think Nick did a good job of, showing that throughout the book on how we do that, because it's a complicated situation when you're in prison.
Are there some, you know, not to give away the whole book, but some smaller techniques or previews that you could give to people who haven't read Prison Rules on some of those techniques that you use to navigate the whole prison system and daily survival?
Yeah, here's a major thing, like, because what Gene said, commissary comes around, most young guys that never been to prison, or naive men, women, they go out and they spend whatever your limit is at the jail, the facility at, whether it's 100 to 300, usually around 300 mark. So they'll go out and they'll buy everything. You're the first guy they're going to rob. They're going to come in, they're going to test you. So what you do is when you first go to prison, you buy your essentials, maybe $10, $15 worth of your cosmetics that you need to stay for your hygiene, and that's it, until you know your way around the facility. And then you can go step up and spend 100 or 200. But you got to feel your way around, see who you know, see if you meet a guy like myself that is going to come in and not target you, is going to pull you in and try to be, especially when the younger guys come in, because, you know, we all got kids. As you're getting older, when the young guys come in, you try to pull them in and take care of them. You try to teach them the ropes, and you make sure that if guys around the facility see that they're staying with us, they don't step to them. But if they're a loner, yeah, they're easy mark. So, you know, you got to just take your time when you walk around the facility. And then the biggest thing besides that is guys get comfortable after they're in a facility. They think everything's okay. That's when they end up usually getting stabbed up, beat up, robbed, because they start thinking they're at college. They're not in jail anymore. And that's a new issue.
Would you say most guys come in fearful?
It's like this. In Rikers Island, if you tell anyone to invite anybody to your private, you're getting cut. If you say anything without words. In jail, it's all about respect, too. Like, if you bump into somebody and don't say, excuse me, I seen a guy get cut over that. He came back, says, why don't you say excuse me to me? And they got into it. Everything's about respect, because you got to understand something. These guys are so upset and mad. They're facing a ton of time. They got no one looking out for them. You know, they're looking for anything. They're looking for trouble. So it's all about respect, the little things. It's the littlest things that are putting you into a war in there. You didn't wipe the phone down after you used it, or something ridiculous where they're coming up to you with a knife or a weapon because it's all about respect in there. That's how it is.
And do you think most people go into those jails fearful or intimidated?
Well, like I said, Rikers Island is all gangs. So it's all Bloods, Crips, it's all gang members. So when they go in there, usually, a lot of times they're with their other gangs. Guys like me, they ain't with gangs. Mafia, we're not in Rikers Island, we're in the feds. So I'm by myself. So of course you're gonna be nervous. You don't know what you're walking into. You know what I mean? You walk into a house, you gotta just, like he said, you go small the first week, you observe, you watch everything. You see who's who, what's going on. There's slot time on the phone. You can't get on the phone anytime you want. You touch that phone after a certain time, you're gonna get jumped. So it's like, you like you said, you have to watch and observe and see who's who and sit back and feel the house out.
Now, Nick, is there something in writing prison rules that you learned about prison that you had no idea about, or some big revelation that working with John kind of brought to the surface?
Yeah, certain things he pointed out that you gotta be aware of while you're in prison. I mean, the whole thing was an experience for me in general. I mean, I was only arrested once. Thank God I never went to prison. But just being in the cell alone woke me up not to go down that path. Plus, my father had a lot to do with it. He was a great father and guided me in the right way. But the thing that was interesting about the book was, because I heard a lot from other guys prior to meeting John, other friends of mine that we did time, but there's a lot of things they didn't tell me that he told me. Things like, you don't gamble in prison, bad idea. Certain things that respect, like what Gene was saying, like when you're in the mess hall, when you're ready to leave, you tap on the table to let everybody know you're leaving.
Now, do you know why they do that? To let you know they're leaving the table, because so you're not plotting on somebody. Well, at least in New York State, that's how it is. You knock because you have to let the person know you're getting up. Because if you get up without knocking, they think you're making a move on them. That's real maximum security stuff right there.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, things of that nature
Right.
is what I kind of learned. That was a little different than what I already knew.
Gotcha. Now, will you kind of, because you were around during that time to know about John and his kind of everything he was doing in his violent past, will you put in a perspective for maybe like the younger generation or people who aren't really familiar with what it was like during that period? What, put in perspective John's place within the Mafia and his role and his notoriety, I guess.
Well, he was one of the toughest guys around on the street. And I'm not just saying that because I'm his friend. It's the fact. I mean, he was one of the toughest guys in the Gambino family. Basically, John Jr. couldn't walk around the block without him being there. He was like a bulletproof vest, so to speak, for him. And he was a pretty tough guy, meaning he didn't take no, I'm not sure if I can say it or not, but he didn't take no shit from nobody. And if something had to get done, he had no qualms about taking a bat or anything that was necessary to protect whatever he needed within the family.
Right. And was there any I guess, do you have any qualms about working with him on a book, or what was that kind of experience, I guess, overall from start to end, and how we guys just kind of talk about how you guys worked on it? Was it him telling you stories? I mean,
working with him was great. I had no qualms about it at all. I enjoyed every minute of it. He's a complete gentleman, and he knows what he's talking about. There's no BS with him. Very black and white. The way we did it is because we didn't live near each other. He lived, and we did everything by phone. He would call in, and I'd tape record it, and then transcribe it, and then put it together in the book, send it back to him, let him review it, stuff like that, back and forth. It took about a year and a half, something like that, for us to put it all together.
And for you, John, what is authoring? I mean, not multiple. Authoring books like for you? I mean, did you ever imagine when you were in jail or in a previous life that one day you would be authoring or co-authoring different books?
Well, this book here was more important to me than Gotti's Rules or Darkest Hour or the other books, because of the motivation I had, I guess, for helping younger guys or adults getting in trouble, because you got so many jackasses out there, right? So you could talk about our show or somebody else's show. But when we're talking about prison rules, we're talking about saving somebody's life. We're talking about saving a kid's life so they don't go this way. But you got so many morons that they're out there and they talk garbage and they talk shit, and they're only affected and hurting kids. Sometimes they're trying to get at me, they're trying to get at somebody else, trying to get at him, trying to get at you. But the bottom line is, the message is to save some lives, right? So when they're doing that, these are usually weak guys that do this, right? And that's why I'm always talking about different ethnic groups. And in the book, we talk about this, and we talk about guys like, I was telling Nick I wanted to talk about a little bit about Spiro today, who was one of the Greek bosses. They tried to hit him, the Gambino film, they tried to hit him with a shotgun. Back in the day, he's doing life. He's about 85 years old now. And hopefully shortly we'll have his son on, who I really happen to like. I think he's a good kid. And we're going to talk about how this life destroys structure of families and some of the real things that we discuss in the book that people really don't want to discuss, because you got cowards out there, especially in this day and age, with telephones and computers, and they type away and they make comments, and they're only hurting those kids. They're such cowards that they don't even have, they got audacity. I really want to know who their fathers are, not even them, that they're trying to hurt kids' lives by, feeding into the bullshit of the street when they don't know nothing about the street, really. They're just big mouths that type away. So the book really tries to authenticate what the street's about, and the adversity of the street, and the treachery, and the real, that people that may get in trouble or find themselves in some trouble, it helps them to get out of trouble or survive through these jails.
Now we're just going to take a quick break, because we are happy to announce our sponsorship with Manscaped. Support for the Johnny and Gene Show is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for all of your family jewels. They just redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team has spent 18 months perfecting the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created, and just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0. Their third-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce manscaping accidents. And thanks to Manscaped's advanced skin-safe technology, you will be receiving the most premium electric trimmer ever known to man. The water-resistant technology allows you to groom in the shower and has an LED light which illuminates grooming areas for a closer and more precise trimming. They've also upgraded to a 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology. And let's not forget about the charging stand. Show your mower off loud and proud, because this intelligently designed stand is a convenient charging dock powered by USB. Get 20% off and free shipping when you use promo code JG at manscaped.com. Again, that's 20% off and free shipping. Use the code JG at manscaped.com. Gentlemen, your balls will thank you. Now let's get back into it. You were talking earlier about family structure and how this life really destroys it. For you, being around a lot of, mob guys and listening to their stories and stuff like that, will you talk about, I think it's interesting to hear the outside look about seeing these, mob guys that have their families and lives destroyed. Will you kind of touch on it and see, I guess for the kids and people out there, telling them why not to get into this life, how it truly does destroy those
families?
Well,
I have a great example. A very good friend of mine, Nicky, he's doing life right now in Allen. He was in Allen, but he got moved. But he's in PA. He was a guy, a made guy in the PA family, Philadelphia family. And we mentioned this in the book, actually, how long it lasts that you're away from your wife or from your kids, and how things can change. And things changed with Nicky. His wife left him. That's one example. And his sons and his niece and his mother and so forth, communication is broken down over time. I hear that from him all the time when we talk. He calls me from prison, or if he writes me, and I feel bad for the guy because he's losing his family one by one. And that's one big thing that guys who want to think about even going down that road, that this is very possibly to happen. You can lose your girlfriend, your wife, your kids. It's a terrible way to live. And this is one subject that John actually mentions in the book.
And for you guys, I know you guys have touched upon it on past episodes, but maybe for people who haven't seen them, will you give maybe an example or two on how being in that life and going to jail affected perhaps personal relationships, friendships, and just kind of affected your life in general, maybe even when you got out afterwards as well?
Well, I don't think it's just, obviously, I can relate it to myself, but it's not just me. It's everybody that goes to prison. You lose the ties in relationship to your family. That's one of the things why I'm always talking about different things, hopefully, that I'm working on prison reforms. with 2-to-1 good days you get, and you can get out early release programs, different things to implement you back into society. But while you're away, it's impossible to maintain a family relationship with your children, with your spouse, with your girlfriend. If it's a girl, her remaining friendships or relationships with a boyfriend or husband, because of the proximity, number one, to where people have to go to work, they don't have time. Kids are involved in their own lives, sports, activities with school. So it's not conducive to having any kind of real relationship. So, you're going to lose the family, and the kids are going to lose the family values of having a parent. And it's just a breakdown in the system, and that's why it needs a lot of change, so that people can have some sort of relationship, because it's impossible to maintain from all these impossible standards that are put in place, that you can't have a family relationship. And by the phone, it doesn't work. And as the kids get older, there's issues. And if your kids are sick and you're not there, there's animosity you're not there through anything in their life. And rightfully so, they're going to have animosity, because they just, they're hurting inside. And when they're kids, they can't communicate their feelings as you get older. And it comes out in a negative way as they get older.
And for Eugene?
He's so right. But the thing for me is I did over 10 years in prison, right? And I did about 4 years of it in Rikers Island, right? You only get 21 minutes every 6 hours on the phone. How can you actually keep a relationship with somebody or your kids or anything with 21 minutes every 6 hours? For them to come visit you, it takes them about 6 hours to get in, and they only could stay for 1 hour. So when you go to jail, you lose connection with everybody. 9 out of 10 times, you're going to lose your girlfriend. Your kids are going to start to resent you, or, not speak to you no more. It depends on, if you have a good family or support system. Like I had a good mom. If I didn't, I would have had nothing in jail. So it's like when you go in there, all these friends, all these people that are supposed to be by your side, they disappear, because an old timer once told me, he goes, Gene, nobody cares. Except for the main people you have in your life, your mom, your dad, or whatever, nobody cares. When you go away, you're just another number. That's it. Oh, yeah, he got 10 years. Who gives a shit about him? And that's how it usually happens. So most of the time, you're going to lose your girlfriend. You're going to lose everybody you care about. And that's usually the ending for everybody. You might get 1% or 2% that they stay around, but it's rare.
And how do you guys mentally stay, sane, knowing that, your relationships are destroyed? And you had kids when you were in jail, that, your kids were without their dad for a while. What is that like?
Well, here's what I'm talking about. These fake tough guys that are on the street typing away. The truth is, and I know some serious killers. I'm not talking about myself as a violent guy. I'm talking about other guys now. I watch guys break down and cry. And that's the pain of jail. Being locked up in jail isn't the part about being locked up in jail. I think most guys in the street can accept that part and deal with that part. But the pain comes with the financial burden on your family when they're suffering. Nobody has money. They're running all over the street. They don't have a house to live in, an apartment to live in. You're watching this from the inside. It's killing you. At the same time, your family's so angry at you. So that's the part, like when people are talking, you got to talk honest so these kids and these young adults see the pain of the crying that you do. When people act like they weren't crying, they're so full of shit. I'm not talking about physical pains, nothing. I've been stabbed up, I've been shot. I go over this all the time when people say, well, he hurt a lot of guys. And I got hurt a lot. I got battered. That's the easy pain. We all can accept physical pain. That goes away after a while. You get hurt and that's it. But when you got mental pain, that's the part that, when Nick goes to visit, and he went up, and I brought up Spiro earlier, Greek boss, tough guy, gentleman, family guy, destroyed his own family too because of this. And Nick could tell you when he goes to visit, these visits, like he said, it takes hours to get in. But how about some of these trips? You got to go 8 hours, 10 hours out of state. It's not feasible for a family financially or any otherwise. And Nick could tell you, right, Nick? You went to these places, you visited Spiro. You know what he said to you.
Yeah, well, I visited Spiro and Nicky. They were both in PA.
Nick, it was one of the worst feelings for me? I know on a Friday, Saturday night, like when you get ready to go out, you get ready, 8, 9 o'clock? We're laying down, locking in for the night. And that used to kill me. Lay down, everybody's out having fun, everybody's doing your thing, and you're going to bed at 9 o'clock with your fucking lights out. And I used to be like, damn, what the hell did I do to myself? So you just sit in that cell when it locks, and you're just sick to your stomach. I don't care who you are. You know, that it's the same feeling you're gonna get. Damn, man, we're going to bed at 9 o'clock. I'm a grown man.
Well,
You know
you
what I
can
mean?
think about Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
New
Anything.
Year's Eve,
Anything.
Christmas
How-
Eve,
anything.
Your son's christening,
Yeah.
graduation for your kids. I mean, I go through all the holidays that people don't understand the pain. So that's why it infuriates me, not personally, when these morons are writing when you're trying to get a message across to children out in the streets.
Now, to wrap things up, Nick, will you kind of, because again, we're trying to stick to this message, I guess, in the end of, and everything that we've been talking about today is really on par with telling kids and grown men too and women to stay away from the life. You've seen it more from the outside looking in. Will you just, I guess, kind of tell people, now that you've been around for a long time around people that have had their lives destroyed, been in jail, I guess the big lesson on, and maybe a way in which you can advise people to stay out of trouble and stay away from this life?
Well, I forgot to mention earlier, I even had a more personal experience. My uncle went away for 8 years, and my cousin went away for 2 years. So it was even closer to home, actually, for me, which I didn't mention earlier. And when he went away for 8 years, it was kind of weird not seeing my uncle anymore at any weddings, christenings, blah, blah, everything, you name it. His kids, his grandkids, he didn't see even his grandkids even born until they came home. And he told me of his experience. I asked him, I go, what was it like? Not being able to be here for your kids, your grandkids. It tore him up. Forget about it. He didn't even look like the same guy when he came out. He looked different. It showed in his face, the emotion, the mental drain that John was talking about. What I would suggest for kids, I mean, listening to what John says, what Gene says, is a great message. It's something to learn. That the street life is definitely not the way to go. That prison life is not glamorous like you might see on TV or whatever. It's nothing as what they expect it to be. It's definitely a very disheartening situation where it destroys everything around you, family, and whatever that you had at one time that was pure has now turned to nothing.
You know what kids got to think, Felix, is any person that's ever shot me, hurt me, battered me, stabbed me, I either killed, shot, stabbed, I just completely brutalized them. Not one person ever got away with it with me, right? Through all my years. And I've been stabbed up twice, battered a couple of times, shot, and I got even with everybody. And I'm trying to tell these kids at the time, it's harder not to do something, because the hardest thing I do now in my life is, I'm still the same person, not going to shoot or kill the guys that I want to, right? Because there's guys that try to agitate me, and I don't do it anymore, right? I hold myself back. And if I can do it and control myself and work at it and practice at it and work myself, not that you're going to get mad, this and that, but you got to say your life's worth more than their life. Because by doing that and getting even, you're ruining your life. So that's what I want kids to understand. I feel what you're saying, because I know a lot of these kids, they're saying, man, I don't care. I'm going to get that guy. But at the end, when you get that guy, you're just getting yourself. So that's really got to be the message. They need to work on themselves mentally to be able to control themselves so they don't butcher that guy they want to butcher. Because I understand the mentality. And it's like exercise. You must exercise your brain.
Yeah, well said. Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show today. People can find your work at nickchristofers.org, I believe.
Correct.
You've got your book with John, Prisons Rules, and a whole lot of other content that they can find, photos, artwork. All your books are up there. Is there anything else that you want to tell the masses?
Well, no, it's great being here. It was a pleasure working with John. Prison Rules is a great book to have. It's a good educational tool for any young kid or for any parent that has a kid in prison. It's a great assistance for them, and John's a great guy for them to reach out to for any kind of advice.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick.
All right. Thank you, Nick.
Perfect.